Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's 11th of May, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So I don't even know where to start. The last 24 hours have been more crazy than the previous 24 hours that I covered yesterday. Just absolute insanity, mayhem. I don't really know what to say. I don't know where to start, but I'm going to just go for it. So I would say that, I mentioned my top 5 most craziest days in crypto, or craziest times in crypto yesterday. The last 24 hours now ranks as number 2. And it's number 2 only behind the March 2020 or Black Thursday dump. And that's because I don't think anything's ever going to top that. That was a true crypto black swan moment. People thought that crypto was going to zero, that it was dead. Obviously there was the stuff happening with COVID as well, which just kind of like added pain to it. And it was like a very, very market-wide thing. But the last 24 hours, the reason why I would say it's ranked number 2 now is because I have never seen anything like what happened to the Luna token. Like, holy crap, guys. If I go to CoinGecko right now, and I just kind of like check the latest update on what happened to Luna, right, at time of recording, if it wants to load. I don't think CoinGecko's loading right now because everyone's probably trying to load it. But just to give you a sense of kind of like what happened, Luna's price is now 80 cents. It was $100 a month ago. Right, it is down 99% from its all-time high in a month, right? And most of that kind of like price action has happened within the last few days. It is down over the last 24 hours. It is down 97.5%. I have never seen this happen to something as large as Terra before. I think it may have happened to smaller things in the past, but nothing even comes close to the scale of Terra. Like, it was tens of billions of dollars of market cap. The amount of wealth that has been destroyed in the last 24 hours in crypto is insane. Like, absolutely insane, right? And it's obviously taken a lot of the market with it as well. And the inflation numbers just came in, which led to another market sell-off for crypto. ETH got down to 2100. It's hovering around 2150 right now. Just looking at the charts, like, everything's destroyed. Like, some of the other coins out there are down massively over the last 24 hours as well, not just kind of like Luna. There's been a lot of wealth destroyed over the last 24 hours, and that's why I think it has been absolutely crazy. But just focusing on what's happened with Terra, I mean, UST went to like 22 cents. It's obviously supposed to be $1. Luna's just kept cratering. Do Kwon came out and basically said, like, a TLDR of what he said was that he's just going to let it go to zero, or they're just going to let it go to zero and try to start again. And there was one thing in his kind of like tweet thread that he put out where he said that as they begin to rebuild UST, we will adjust its mechanism to be collateralized. So this is basically them completely giving up on the algo stablecoin model and basically becoming DAI. And that's why I put out this tweet here where I said, you just DAI now. And it's kind of ironic that he would tweet that, considering how much shit he hung on DAI and Maker for so long, saying that he was going to kill it and all that sorts of stuff. But yeah, and I know that I've been like shit posting a lot over the last, I guess, 48 hours. People have been kind of like telling me that I'm gloating and I'm dancing on people's graves. And I put out a tweet about that where I said, I want to be clear, I'm not dancing on the graves of the retail investors who got wrecked on UST and Luna. I do obviously feel bad for them. There's obviously a lot of talk about kind of like people harming themselves and things like that, and suicide hotlines being posted. I mean, look, there's nothing new to crypto. It's been that's been posted before, but I mean, I feel completely sorry for these people. Like, a lot of these people are true normies. They entered into Anchor, which was like the yield protocol that Terra had to earn that kind of like outsized yield on UST. They didn't understand the risks or any of the underlying mechanisms and how it all worked, and now they're just completely wrecked, right? And then I continued on my tweet saying, I'm dancing on the graves of the egomaniac lunatics led by Do Kwon himself, who ignored every single warning and acted like they were kings. I just want to put this into context, guys. This isn't like a couple days of us warning Do Kwon and the Terra community. We have warned them for a year, I think, at this point. And the entire time, they made fun of us. They called us ETH maxis. Do Kwon especially shit over every single person who warned him about this. They laughed and laughed and laughed. And they doubled down every time the Luna market cap grew and the UST market cap grew. And they kept going. And the hubris, the ego, the kind of like just absolute arrogance out of that community was insane, right? And that's why I am dancing on the grave of someone like Do Kwon. I think that at this point he belongs in prison, to be honest. I think that they're not going to be able to rebuild anything in my mind. I feel like he's done, to be honest. I feel like he just put that out as a reactionary thing. I don't think there's anything to survive there. And I'm sorry if people think that I'm being ruthless here and I'm not being sympathetic. As I said, I'm sympathetic to the people who lost money, especially those who had no idea what they were getting themselves into, but I have zero sympathy for Do Kwon. I have zero sympathy for the lunatics who doubled down, tripled down, quadrupled down, and insulted every single person who tried to have a rational discussion with them about how UST was destined for collapse and Luna was going to go with it. So I just wanted to be very, very clear about that. I kind of like put out some other tweets as well about this. Where's this other one that I said? I put out this tweet saying, regulators are going to turbo fuck us over this, aren't they? They are. There was a video clip of Janet Yellen basically talking about UST, right? Within 24 hours of it blowing up. Guys, the regulators are going to use this against us in a very big way, I think. They were already coming for stablecoins. Well, now they're coming even harder, and now they have a lot of evidence to back up their claims. They're going to be drumming up support about for this. And MiniMoon here had a really great tweet about this where they said the difference between something like and UST is that you had to be a degen to get into but normies got suckered into UST. Important to keep gang violence among gangs. Once you hurt the general public is when the feds step in. So this, like using the gang example here, a lot of the time gang violence in a city is definitely just between gangs, right? And general public don't really care in that case. They're just like, okay, as long as it's kept between the gangs, whatever, I'll just go about my life. As soon as that violence starts leaking out of the gangs and starts affecting ordinary people, that's when they obviously start complaining and start crying to the politicians, to the regulators, to the law enforcement to do something. And they do. In a lot of the cases, they will. They'll do something and they'll make an example of these gangs, and it'll end badly for the gangs in that case, right? There might be mass arrests or kind of like maybe there's kind of like a lot of shutting down of their businesses and things like that, whatever, right? Same is going to be true for crypto. Because but like UST, as I said, did not only hurt the degens, it hurt the normies. And it hurt a lot of normies who aren't even into crypto through what's called neobanks. And these neobanks are basically front ends that sit on top of something like Anchor, the yield protocol, and funnel people's dollars into that without upfront telling them what they're doing with their dollars. They're just kind of like saying, here, you can earn a 20% yield if you put your dollars in here. And then you read the fine print and they say, oh, you can lose everything, but they won't give that to you up front, right? They'll tell you, in the fine print. So they're wrecked, right? And Luna holders are absolutely giga wrecked. Like, I've never seen so much wreckage in my life in such a short period of time. Like, guys, I don't think you maybe still don't understand the scale of what happened to the Luna token. Like, it wasn't just a small thing that dropped 97% in 24 hours or 99% in a month. It was worth, I think, $100 billion fully diluted value at its peak, right? And it is now under, I think it's almost under $1 billion fully diluted. Like, it's insane. Like, I can't believe it, guys. Like, seriously, I'm in disbelief. Like, I've been in this industry for 5 years now, kind of like full time. But as I said, I've been around when MT Gox collapsed in 2013, 2014. Obviously, it was a much smaller scale back then, but this is the craziest thing ever, and I'm still kind of like in disbelief about it. But yeah, the regulators, they're coming. They're coming harder than ever now. There's going to be so much fallout from this. We're going to learn about this for months to come, I think. Some of the funds, actually a lot of funds that were involved with Luna got absolutely wrecked, and a lot of people in those funds got wrecked. They're down massively, down very, very badly. And you can tell which ones are because they're quiet, right? Some would have made money off of it, taking the other side of the trade, but there is so much wealth that has just been absolutely destroyed in the last 2 days. It's absolutely crazy. And, I hope a lot of you guys weren't exposed to this. I know some of you in the Discord said that you jumped out of this sort of stuff when I started warning about it, which, is awesome. Like, great that you did that. But I know inevitably some of you may have had money in these things. And obviously, as the wider crypto market has been falling, you're probably losing a bit of paper profits there. But guys, like, that's just par for the course with crypto. There's not going to just be up only forever. And I've talked about how, because of obviously the inflation being high and because of a lot of other things going on in the macro environment right now, the party's over for now. Like, the party's been over for quite a while. I think people are finally coming to terms with that. And that's how bear markets kind of like end eventually is when everyone basically capitulates. Like, obviously, I mean, I think it goes without saying at this point that I'm still bullish on ETH and Ethereum in the long term. But the short term, I mean, short to medium term is pretty wrecked at this point, right? ETH could recover leading up to the merge just because of all the hype surrounding it. And I'm actually liking what I'm seeing lately about all these kind of like other vaporware things, kind of like all the alt L1s and all the other shit just absolutely tanking. Yes, people are getting hurt holding them, but guys, like, they're literally kind of like vaporware. They're literally worthless, and they deserve to go to zero, essentially. Like, there's no point me sugarcoating it and saying, oh, people are getting hurt because these things are dumping. We should all kind of like play nice with them. We're all in this together. No, like, I'm sorry, we're not all in this together. And it doesn't matter what I say. These things are going to go to whatever the market thinks their fair value is. And for most of them, their fair value is basically nothing, right? Nothing ever goes to zero. Like, I think it's impossible for anything to go to zero unless it's delisted off every exchange. And even then, like, it's hard because you have decentralized exchanges now. But generally, like, near zero, right? Or kind of like to a point where it's just like economically irrelevant, right? So I think there's that kind of like that, a lot of that playing on it as well. And that's kind of like what spurred this tweet here, where I says, it feels like many people in crypto are finally realizing that most of the alt L1s are vaporware, and that there is a reason why Ethereum is built the way it is. I really feel this. I feel a tide shift going on right now. I feel like the alt L1 trade is well and truly dead. People have finally kind of like woken up to the fact that the quote unquote ETH maxes aren't just yelling about these things because you're not buying ETH, or you're kind of like using other things. It's got nothing to do with that, guys. Like, as you guys know, like, I've been calling out all of this stuff for months now because it's just simply the truth. Like, I always like to speak truth to power. I always like to kind of be upfront with you guys, and I don't like sugarcoating things. So from that point of view, like, Ethereum has just performed so amazingly over the last 12 months in the face of all of this, and everything else is just done really poorly. So I think more people are cluing into this. I feel the kind of like wind's changing here, and it's a really positive thing. And I feel like layer 2s are coming online, doing their incentive programs, growing at the perfect time, like absolutely the perfect time, which is just making me even happier here. So very, very cool to see that. But I think that was basically it for most of the Terra related tweets that I had here. But there's just a few other things that I kind of like wanted to add on to that one there. There's, you guys know I talk a lot about risk within crypto, right? Risk within putting your money into certain smart contracts, into certain protocols, risk within what you buy, and when, and leverage trading, of course, and stuff like that. And, it may not seem obvious as to why I'm warning you guys about this at first, but I think over time you see why. I mean, it's not just me, obviously. There's a lot of people warning about these sorts of things, but you see clear as day as to why these warnings exist, right? And this is the same with basically everything in life, right? People will tell you the risks about certain things, but it may not seem obvious to you at first, or you may want to ignore it just intuitively. But, a lot of the time those things come true. And I know there's a lot of bad intentioned people within crypto. They lie to you. Obviously, people like the Bitcoin maximalists have lied a lot about Ethereum over the years, and a lot of the things that they've said about Ethereum are just completely false and never came to fruition. But as I mentioned yesterday, most of the things that myself and others have said about these other L1s have completely come to pass, come to fruition, and I think more people are cluing into that. And that's kind of like goes back to what I was just saying about risk, is like, I warn you guys because I don't want you guys like putting money into things and then losing it and then kind of like exiting crypto. I've always maintained that the worst thing that can happen to someone is that they blow themselves up, they exit crypto, and they regret that decision later on down the line. Because honestly, guys, like, I have gone through something similar. I didn't blow myself up, but I exited crypto. You guys know, in 2014, I sold what little Bitcoin I had left after basically wrecking myself trying to day trade, to be honest. And then I left the ecosystem and didn't come back until early 2017. And that's one of the biggest regrets I have in life, because I missed out on Ethereum until then. Now, obviously, I've made up for that. That was actually a big driver behind what I've done over the last few years. But I think that I just want to keep imparting that wisdom onto you guys. It's like, just survive. Don't blow yourself up. Make sure you know the risks of things. Play it safe. I know it can be very, very tempting, especially during bull markets, to jump into these more risky things because you're seeing everyone around you make lots of money, or at least make a lot of paper gains. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, I'm missing out on this. This sucks, right? I totally get that. I felt that myself plenty of times. But it takes a very special kind of person, I think, to resist that, to kind of like hold steady through it, and just kind of like reflect on the fact that these things always end the same way. Like bull markets in crypto have ended the same way every single time. And that's with a massive sell off across pretty much everything and a few things blowing up completely along the way. Like that's pretty much the through line of every crypto cycle, of every kind of like bull and bear cycle, and I don't think that's going to stop anytime soon, because I think it's just like a kind of like through line for every market, right? Not just crypto, just markets in general, because that's just the way they work. So yeah, on the kind of like risk side of things, as I said, I hope a lot of you guys haven't blown yourselves up. I hope all of you guys haven't blown yourselves up. But if you have and you're still here, maybe you'll get an opportunity to rebuild your position and kind of like keep learning and kind of like focus on building yourself up and building kind of like your own skill set up. If you want to work in Web3 or want to work in crypto, now is obviously one of the best times to get involved with this. As I've said before, plenty of these teams are cashed up, ready to hire people. They're definitely not going to be struggling for cash because of the raises that they just did, but do strap in for a longer bearish period. Like I think 2022 at this point has got to be a write-off, right? Like I'm not expecting any fireworks in 2022, even with the merge coming up for ETH. Look, I don't know if ETH will go to all-time high again, leading up to the merge, around the merge, a bit after the merge. Maybe it'll take till 2023 to do so. It's just too hard to tell at this stage, right? Because the market is definitely bearish right now. We're in a bearish trend. That's going to take a while to kind of like break out of. We do tend to go sideways and things like that for a while, but yeah, I just want to, that's not, again, guys, this is an investment advice, but this is just kind of like the way I'm seeing things. And if things change, if I feel things changing, I'll kind of like, I'll say that. But I think at this point in time, it's best to accept that we are in a deep bear market. We may be here for quite a while, and just focus on the things that you have been focusing on to improve both your own life and improve kind of like your positions within crypto. If you want to keep stacking that ETH, then do it, right? Like, I don't know if the price is going to go lower than what it is today. I don't know if you buying here is going to lead to you kind of like losing money in the future. Like I can't give that advice to you guys. And just a reminder here, like in 2018, I bought ETH. I bought a lot of ETH. I think I pretty much put all of my savings at the time into ETH in 2018 and October 2018 at $220. ETH went to $80 2 months later, guys. Like, I've been there. I've felt everything that you're feeling as a first cycler multiple times. Trust me when I say it gets better. You just need to not blow yourself up. You need to focus on yourself. You need to focus on what you're best at, and you need to kind of like make sure that that you kind of like keep that focus for a long time and be consistent with it. I think that's the only way to make it in crypto. But anyway, a few other updates to get through. I kind of like rambled on a bit there, but yeah, I think hopefully the next 24 hours aren't as crazy so that I can like not have to focus on this so much. But yeah, the last 24 hours, just absolute insanity. Hope you guys are doing okay. But anyway, moving on to the next set, to the other sets of updates. So Daniel from the Nethermind team announced today that the beta version of SnapSync in Nethermind is now ready. So it's reducing the Ethereum mainnet state sync to 2 hours on a very fast machine. So you'll be able to kind of like sync a full Ethereum node using SnapSync within 2 hours on a relatively fast machine here. This is really cool. I like anything that makes it easier to run Ethereum full nodes, of course. And if you are running one, if you're running Geth, actually, maybe switch over to Nethermind, because Geth is the majority client on the execution layer side right now, and it's like at 85% or something. So consider switching to something like Nethermind, which is a great client. I mean, there are a bunch of others out there, but if you want to try out their SnapSync, well, that's the perfect reason to kind of like do so, right? So definitely check this out if you haven't yet. Of course, everything linked in the YouTube description as usual. So Toghrul from Scroll here had a great little tweet thread today where he said, "When I hear people say that blockchain technology doesn't contribute to anything meaningful, I'm always left astounded by their ignorance. Here's an incomplete list of breakthroughs and improvements achieved by people while working on blockchain technologies." So on the consensus side, you have things like Nakamoto consensus, asynchronous classical consensus, Avalanche, privacy-preserving POS-based consensus protocols. And then on the cryptography side, you have things like Starks and Snarks. And then computation, you have privacy-preserving computation, Turing-complete virtual machines. And then on privacy side, you also have privacy-preserving transactions, such as something like Sapling. So these are all very technical technologies, so to speak, but they've come out of crypto crypto, come out of blockchain. And as I've said before, these sorts of things are going to have very big impacts on the wider kind of like non-crypto world as they kind of like get developed, as they get adopted there. And it's going to be like a big deal. And that's been all funded by crypto money, essentially. So yeah, I'm with Toghrul here. When people say that blockchain tech or crypto hasn't kind of like contributed anything meaningful to society, it's completely wrong in my eyes, because it has in a big way. And I think just in general as well, on top of this, the non-technical side of things, the wealth effect from crypto, the amount of money that it's been made from certain people for a lot of people in crypto, has contributed positively to, I think, the world, right? Obviously people have lost money over time too, but I think those who kind of like make money, a lot of them go on to do a lot of great things, especially the bigger kind of like people in this industry, especially people like Vitalik, they go on to do great things with that money. So I think that's another kind of like effect and another meaningful thing that crypto has given to the world. So Owoki had a great tweet thread today about DAOs, and I won't read the whole thread out, but I will read his first tweet here, where he said, "The community has hurt itself by restrictively defining DAO to mean a community of group embracing the tyranny of structurelessness. There's been a rather successful movement to discredit the efforts of any DAO with even a loosely decentralized structure as not being a real DAO." And Owoki expands on his thoughts in his thread here, but basically what he's saying is that there's a lot of people who believe that if you're a DAO, you can't have leadership. And I've always maintained that I think this is a very, very wrong way to think about it, because just because something has leadership doesn't mean that it's centralized. Like, even Ethereum has people in leadership positions, has people in coordination positions, such as Danny Ryan and Tim Baiko, who are pushing kind of like Ethereum forward in a big way and coordinating people. And that's what's actually needed, because if you don't have leadership, if you don't have coordination or any kind of structure, what ends up happening is that, one, the people who fill that leadership void are usually the wrong people to be in positions of leadership. Two, you have a bunch of people that are doing things without any kind of direction, so they're just kind of like doing things at random, and it's actually kind of like net bad for the ecosystem. And then kind of like three, you have people leaving that kind of like DAO because they're like, well, why would I kind of stick around? Nothing's getting done. We're bleeding kind of like value out of our token. And it just feels like everything's going to shit, so to speak. So yeah, I mean, I think Owoki is kind of like spot on here. You should read his tweet thread about this. He obviously knows a thing or two about DAOs, being involved with Gitcoin for so long, but it's just something to keep in mind. Just because something has leadership or coordination or structure doesn't make it centralized, guys. Like, and it needs that. Like, pretty much 99% of projects in this ecosystem kind of like need this if they want to keep succeeding. And keep growing and keep thriving. And I think currently most of them don't have this, which kind of like sucks, right? And it's actually very hard to find good leaders, to be honest. And I think this is why so many projects fail, is because the good leaders don't want to work on shitty projects. They want to work on like really good, groundbreaking projects and interesting projects. And the smartest people will always gravitate towards those things instead of working on things that may be considered kind of like just like not up to scratch for them, right, so to speak. But anyway, I'll link this thread in the YouTube description for you to check out. All right, so Optimism announced today that depositing small amounts, less than 0.5 of ETH to Optimism, is now 5 times cheaper and 15 times faster. So you can use a bridge called Warp Speed, which is a custodial bridge enabling one of the cheapest deposit fees of ETH in the ecosystem. And you can kind of like see it here. So many early OP users will remember Teleporter, which I've talked about before on the Refuel. So basically, that has been kind of like transformed into Warp Speed, which allows you to deposit up to 0.5 ETH into Optimism at 5 times cheaper rates and 15 times faster than the official kind of like bridge that they've got going. So this is a centralized bridge, custodial bridge, that's going to be enabling you to do this, but still very, very cool to see more options to get into Optimism here, because the centralized exchanges seem to be dragging their feet, especially Coinbase. Don't know what the hell Coinbase is doing. Like, apparently they increased their headcount recently from like 1,700 to 5,000. And I'm like, okay, well, what are these people working on? Like Coinbase isn't really doing anything right now. Like, put some of those people on the L2 integrations. Like, come on, guys. It's just crazy, right? So just another option here from Optimism with Warp Speed to get onto their L2. All right, finally on the update side, dYdX announced today that they have released an iOS app. So you can you can now interact with dYdX's exchange, their perpetual exchange on L2 by using the iOS app. And I think Android is going to be coming soon. I think I may have seen that mentioned somewhere. But yeah, just another option for you to trade on dYdX. Maybe you were using dYdX to short Luna. I don't know, right? Like, that was actually on there. I actually looked at that at one point. Like, I'm not a trader. I don't short things, right? Like, or anything like that. I don't even try to do that sort of stuff. But when I looked at kind of like, I think I looked at dYdX like 2 or 3 days ago, and I'm like, oh, Luna's on here. Maybe I should open a short. And then I'm like, no, don't do that. You'll get kind of like blown up. So I just didn't. But I mean, it would have been profitable if I did. Would have been really profitable, but I just didn't. I'm sure a lot of people did, and a lot of people have made money off these shorts, but yeah, you can go and use dYdX now on mobile, which is very, very cool to see here. All right, last up, just a quick shout out. David Hoffman from Bankless and I will be doing a live stream on Friday evening US time, Saturday morning, kind of Australian time. We're pretty much going to talk about, I think... So I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I feel like a lot of it's going to be focused on the craziness of Terra, of course. But on top of that, I feel like we've got a lot to talk about on the Ethereum side as well. So definitely tune into that if you want. You can go kind of like set a reminder on the YouTube video right now if you care to do so. That'll be linked in the YouTube description below. And as I've got like a few more minutes left here, there was one other thing I wanted to talk about when it came to the Terra stuff as well, and just like kind of like the markets more broadly. I think when you kind of like look at this as kind of like a high level thing, these sorts of events are like cleansing for crypto. This is how, and for those of you who kind of like are around where wildfires and we call them bushfires in Australia happen, what ends up happening is that like and I'm just using this as an analogy, the bushfire or the wildfire goes through and kind of like burns all the old to make way for the new. It gets rid of all the kind of like old plants, all the dry plants, everything. And then from there, the kind of like new plants sprout and you have like more greenery and stuff like that. But while the burning is happening, while the fires are happening, it leads to a lot of destruction. People's homes get destroyed. Some people lose their lives. There's a lot of kind of like personnel that needs to be brought in to kind of like manage these fires. And there's a lot of second order effects from that as well, right? There's a lot of downstream effects. Same is true with crypto. During these mass cleansing events where things are just kind of like going down only, and some things are going down only really fast, and some things completely blow up like Terra, it's needed. It's needed to clear out all this excess, to clear out all this stupid speculation that we had within the ecosystem, to clear out all this vaporware, and for money to find its way back to fundamentally sound things within this industry, which I think it does over time. And as I've discussed before, I think fundamentals play out over the long term. I think fundamentals help on the way down for certain assets like ETH, for example. If ETH wasn't as strong as it was, ETH would have already been down just as much as a lot of the other tokens, right? They would have been down 90+%, but it's not because it has much better fundamentals backing it up, right? So I think that all this kind of like cleansing, all this dumping, all this bearish price action is needed. And once it's over, we're going to see kind of like the, I guess a lot of the kind of like phoenixes rising from the ashes, a lot of greenery, so to speak, to use my analogy from before, a lot of healthy protocols coming to fruition, only to maybe get to a point again where we kind of like have all that excess and we go into a silly bull market again and then everything pumps just indiscriminately. I don't know. The macro environment is definitely different now than it was during the previous bull markets. Like if you think about it, the macro environment since basically 2009 has been pretty similar, right? Low rates, money printing, everything up only, and now we're in a very different period, I think, in time. So I'm going to be curious to see what the next kind of like proper bull crypto cycle looks like. But for now, we're kind of like suffering through that cleansing. But yeah, that's kind of like the last thing I wanted to kind of say on that one there. And I think that's going to be it for today. I'm very tired. I'm probably going to go to bed soon. But anyway, I think that's it. Thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't yet. Give that a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all tomorrow. Thanks everyone.